I've decided to do a slightly different format than I usually do. I'm just going to talk about topics with this background image. Having said that, I'll start the video. Today we are going to talk about the usefulness of music theory, so if you have entered the video to learn about music theory, this is not your video. But stay, because we are going to reflect a little bit on music and art, on the way music is taught in schools and the usefulness it has. Popularly, when talking about art, music is not included, and from my point of view it is a very good way to express yourself, or until recently musicians were not recognized as artists. Maybe having it so present in their daily lives has brought them into disrepute. People associate music with that song that reminds them of something. People who have no knowledge of the fine arts criticize painting, composition, colors and light, but in music only people who have extensive knowledge speak of music. For example, if you search on YouTube any movie, there are many channels of film criticism without having studied anything about cinema, that criticize the scenes, the script, the lighting, the audio, and the truth is that I think it's very good that people talk about things they have been seeing since they were little, because without studying cinema you can understand it and you can criticize it. The same happens with art, but with music, why doesn't it happen? I think it's mainly because people don't know music theory. I know it will seem contradictory, because I said that you don't have to study film to criticize it, but for music you do. I'm going to explain. Music is very difficult to explain with words. People, due to the lyrics, relate music with situations, moments or certain feelings, but when you really describe the music are used words like texture, color, light. If you figure all these words come from the painting, because we need to get an imagement, because we have not been taught to interpret the music. Painting, like music, has its own language, but people know it less because of the way they teach. Since they were children they were taught to read scores and to learn music theory, but it is not explained what it is for, as they do not know what it is useful for. They are not interested and it is boring. Many times I've heard, "This is what it's for, this doesn't interest me, and even the music doesn't appeal to me." This is because teachers don't awaken interest in music and don't make them see that knowing music theory gives you another very interesting point of view. But I'll talk about that later. This is why many people who know music are because their parents are musicians and have awakened their interest in music. I think there is a trend lately, which says that music theory is useless, and that you shouldn't waste your time studying, that to be a musician or a producer you don't need to. I've seen online courses that instead of saying you want us to teach you music to be a producer, sell like we will teach you to produce without the need for you to know anything. I think that following some chord guidelines is not enough to be a producer. Really, if you are willing to be a music producer you should know music theory, because it will open your mind a lot. Now, deviating a second, I also think that learning to play an instrument and be in contact with many others is very important, because at the end the producer's job is to know how to choose the best instrument for each situation. Many people say that classical music bores them or that they don't like jazz. They also say that they only like pop, and I wonder why. The truth is that it is simple. If you grow up listening to pop you become familiar with the harmonia of pop, you like the lyrics and you give them a lot of importance. In contrast to classical music, it isn't that I know the most complex thing in the world, that only geniuses can listen to it. On the contrary, the first thing is that saying classical music defines any type of music, because listening to Baroque or listening to contemporary music is not the same. Being so wide the music is difficult to be familiar with many genres. In the schools, if they do not teach you that there is a beautiful and interesting in a symphony, it is going to bore you. Something similar happens with the jazz. The jazz uses different harmonies that if you are not familiarized with, they sounded very bad and you stop listening to it, but when you begin to know it you begin to like. This is because we like to understand the things. Many people wonder if it is really useful to teach music theory or if it is necessary to learn theory to make songs. It's true that there are people who don't know musical theory, but they have a very good ear and you give them a piano or a guitar and they do very interesting things. But these people are people with a great ear and they usually know a lot about the instrument. Although many people don't believe it, music theory serves more than to avoid reinventing the wheel. It can also make you understand the music, interpret what the author wrote, but I will talk about this a little later. Now I will focus on the usefulness of the theory to compose. I think the most basic thing that everyone who is involved in music should know is the name of the notes and their order. It may seem silly, but it is very useful to know what notes you are playing, so that you can include more instruments and even play it yourself. The musical figures and the chromases are very important. If you get to master it, you can make very interesting rhythms. There are groups that make puzzles with the rhythm. I don't want to say that the 4x4 compass is bad or too simple. I think that if you know something very well, no matter how simple it is, you can make it interesting and enjoyable. And lastly, basic harmony, knowing the major and minor scales, the alterations, different types of chords. The music is very big and complete, but knowing the minimum will help you a lot, and it is more if you like music. When you start to learn the basics, you will start to like it and you will want to learn more, and little by little you will notice the change in your songs, but especially around you. This is the other point I wanted to talk about. Many people say that it is not necessary to know music to understand or criticize it, and it is true. There are studies that corroborate it. In fact, it is not that it is not necessary, but we all know music indirectly. Our brain during all the years of life that it has been associating patterns. This means that the music is like any other language, although they don't teach it to you directly. If you are daily in contact with it, you will understand it. Moreover, you can criticize a song using words that are not technical, only describing what we hear. We can say what instruments sound, and because they are interesting for the song, we can mention effects such as reverb, distortion, among others. You can also describe the feelings, audio quality, if well structured. As you can see, we will never finish. I say all this because I want to make it clear that you can criticize music without knowing the theory, and that, as studies have already revealed, we indirectly understand it. Once this is clarified, I will give my opinion on why knowing music theory makes you understand better what is happening in any piece you can listen to. As I said before, the music is very big, and as simple as a song may seem, the author puts a lot of details, which are not easy to hear. If you know what you're looking for, it's easier to find it, isn't it? So if you know what the compass is, you will identify it without effort. This will allow you to admire the rhythmic details of a song. You can apply this to any part of the music, because when you know what you are doing, you're able to perceive things that others don't. It is clear that music theory can make you enjoy more when you listen to a song, because you know how to identify the key aspects, you know what to look for, and when you already have all this information, if you also understand it, is the perfect combo for you to like it. But in conclusion, I don't want to say that you can't enjoy music without knowing the theory. The music is very big, and if your 4 chords are shocking you, don't let anyone ruin them for you. As I said at the beginning, music and all the arts in general are about expressing yourself, so if you like something, no matter how simple it is, it's valid. Every time you see students from conservatories in the case of music, or people who study the art career, are frustrated because they see everything they have been learning in many years, now anyone can do it online fast and cheap. If this is your case, do not get frustrated, try to understand it. A very good example of how we all understand music is the soundtracks of the movies. You don't have to know music to get the feelings the director wants you to have. In fact, without music, many scary movies wouldn't be scary. Or movies like Interstellar that have an incredible soundtrack by Hans Zimmer that brings a lot to the movie. There are many examples. In a video I already made, I talked about ambient music and explained how it makes you feel in your comfort zone, and obviously you don't need to know how to do it to get relaxed. In conclusion, if you are not a musical genius, you should learn the basics of music theory to compose, and although you don't need to know theory to enjoy music or understand it, I think it's interesting to learn because it will give you a broader point of view and you will realize things that you don't realize now. I think that's it. Give a like if you like it, and see you soon.